Begin whenever you're ready.
You're muted, Cheryl.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Osteopathic Medical Board of California. This meeting is being held on January 14th, 2021, and the time is 10:03 a.m. This meeting is occurring at various locations pursuant to the Executive Order N-25-20 dated March 12th, 2020. Today's meeting will be conducted using the following guidelines. All participants will mute their microphones or phones during each presentation of the agenda topic. Board members who wish to provide additional comments should select the raise hand feature next to their name. This will alert the host and chair you have additional comments. At the conclusion of the discussion from the board members, I will ask for public comment. Members of the public on the WebEx platform should select the raise hand feature next to their names to indicate they have comment. This will alert the host and chair you wish to speak. At the conclusion of the discussion period, I will call for the vote if necessary or move to the next agenda item. All in attendance should keep their comments specific to the agenda item being discussed. An opportunity for the public comment for items not on the agenda will be provided. Please be advised that during this comment period, the board cannot engage in discussion or take action on any matter that is raised except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. We will now establish a quorum. Machiko, can you call the roll?
This is a moderator, and Machiko, we're not hearing you. Looks like you might have lost your audio. If you go up to audio at the top of your screen, you have some options. And Machiko, if you need to call in for your audio, that number is 415-655-0001.
This is Sabina. If you can hear me. Mark, would you mind taking roll while Machiko figures this out?
Thank you, Sabina. I'll take roll in lieu of Machiko's audio difficulties. Earl Williams?
Present.
Dr. Jensen?
Present.
Gora Damian?
Present.
Dr. Bahari?
Present.
Dr. Patel?
Here.
Andrew Moreno?
Good morning, present.
And Claudia Mercado. I've taken the roll, and we have a quorum, and we can move on to the next agenda item. Back to you, Cheryl.
Agenda item 2. Let's see. Public comment on items not on agenda. During the meeting today, public comment is welcome on the agenda item, as the item is taken up by the board under the Open Meeting Act. The board may not take any action on issues raised by public comment that are not on the agenda other than to decide whether to schedule that issue for further meeting. In order to allow the board's significant time to conduct this scheduled business, the board may limit the time given to each person who wishes to comment. Please make your comments focused on relevant to the applicable agenda item. It is not necessary to repeat statements or review of previous speaker. It is sufficient that you agree. Written statements should be summarized and submitted to the board. They should not be read. The board appreciates your cooperation and assistance in meeting its legal mandate. At this time, is there any public comment or items not on the agenda?
Thank you, Madam President. This is the moderator. I have opened up the Q&A panel. So if any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment.
Hi, this is Maganito. I'm the Executive Director of the Osteopathic Medical Board. I want to take this time to honor someone who is near and dear to my heart and is an integral part of the osteopathic profession in California and nationwide. This man has a larger-than-life personality and always seems to put a smile on your face. Dr. Zamuda was appointed as a board member on May 24, 2012, and honorably served on our board until his term expired on June 1st, 2020. Dr. Zamuda, we have made a plaque to honor you for your service. I will turn on my video now. Let me turn on my video here. I keep turning it on and off. Okay. So this is kind of awkward to show it here, but Dr. Zamuda, we have made a plaque for you to honor you for your service. The plaque states, "In appreciation of your 8 years of service to the Osteopathic Medical Board,
Congratulations again.
Thank you so much, Angie. Appreciate it.
All right, this is a moderator. Our next comment is from Rebecca Mitchell. So Rebecca, I'll let you know when you've been unmuted. Okay, Rebecca, you've been unmuted.
Great, thank you, Ms. Moderator. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So I just wanted to pop on here and congratulate Dr. Zamudo and thank him for the outstanding job that he's always done for the OMBC and the osteopathic profession. You always were very fair and impartial towards other programs. And I wanted to personally come on and say thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. The Naturopathic Medicine Committee wishes you the best in your future and ongoing endeavors. And again, thank you so much for everything you've done for the osteopathic profession.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and that is the end of public comments at this time. Madam Board President, would you like me to close the question and answer panel?
Yes, but I'd like to thank Dr. Zamudo too. He has been a really good mentor for me in this endeavor. So I want to thank you for all that you have taught me as I've been on the board. And good luck with your retirement. And I know you were having a lot of fun right now, whenever you can get out.
Thank you, Cheryl. Very nice.
And this is a moderator. It looks like Member Jensen would also has a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you also to Dr. Zamudo for everything. I met him first in 2014 when I joined the board, and it was a welcome thing to have a wonderful mentor who could tell me what was going on and help show me the ropes, and also as just a senior physician, always there and available for any questions I had and any advice, which you continue to do even when you are no longer on the board. And I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Well, thank you. And we'll move on to item number 3. And I will turn this over to Mark.
Hi, this is agenda item number 3, the election of officers. Before we get to the election of officers, I want to thank Cheryl Williams for stepping in as the active president after Dr. Zamuto's term expired. I speak for everyone here at the board and thanking you for your service for stepping up as the active president, Cheryl. So thank you. So agenda item number 3, the election of officers. The nominations are open for the position of board president. Do I have any nominations?
I would like to make a nomination.
Okay.
This is Andrew. I'd like to nominate Dr. Buhari as board president.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any further nominations for president?
This is Claudia Mercado,
Okay.
and I would like to nominate Elizabeth Jensen.
This is Dr. Jensen. Just since we're both up, I appreciate my nomination. I'm gonna second Dr. Buhari.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. Thank you, Claudia. Is there any further discussion by the board?
This is Sabina. Just to make a record clear, Andrew, was that a motion to for Dr. Buhari for president, or you just wanted to nominate him and see if he's interested?
I guess the proper way would be to see if he is interested. I would like to make a motion that the board elects Dr. Buhari as our next board president.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Dr. Buhari, will you accept such position?
Yes, I accept the position, and I appreciate all the members of the board and the nomination and the opportunity. And hopefully this will allow me to proceed with such grace and dignity that Dr. Zamuto held the position for so long.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a second by Dr. Jensen for Dr. Buhari as president.
Okay. So it has been moved and seconded. All in favor of electing Dr. Buhari as president?
We need a roll call vote, Mark.
Okay.
We also need public comment.
All right, as a moderator, I will go ahead and open up the question and answer panel. And if you would like to make a comment, please type. I would like to make a comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. All right. This is the moderator, and I see no request for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the question and answer panel?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it's been closed.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded. We've had public comment. So I'm going to take a roll call. Cheryl Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Jensen, Dr. Jensen.
Sorry. Yes, I support Dr. Buhari.
Thank you. Thank you. Gora Damian,
Yes, I do.
Dr. Bahari,
Yes.
Dr. Patel,
Yes.
Andrew Moreno,
Yes.
and Claudia Mercado.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. So all in favor, actually, we already did the roll call. So motion carried. Congratulations, Dr. Bahari.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the support from the board, and moving forward, we hope to, as I said, lead it with such grace that Dr. Zamuto did for many years. And when I first started on the board, he was a great role model and someone to look to for any of the comments during the board meetings, and always kept in mind that the purpose of the board is protection of the public. And we'll hope that we keep that up going forward.
Thank you, Dr. Bahari. So nominations are now open for the position of board vice president. Do I have any nominations for the board's vice president?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Dr. Jensen for vice president.
Thank you, Dr. Patel. Are there any further nominations for the board's vice president?
I would like to also support the nomination of Dr. Jensen. This is Dr. Buhari here.
Dr. Jensen, this is Sabina. Is this a position that you would accept?
Yes, I would, Sabina.
Okay, great. And I wanted to go back a little bit and verify that was indeed a motion for Dr. Jensen as vice president, and indeed a second motion.
It was indeed a second.
Thank you. And then after any more additional nominations for board discussion, then after that we can have public comment.
Is there any public comment from anyone?
Thank you. This is the moderator. I will go ahead and open up the Q&A panel. All right, the question is available. If you would like to make a public comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" and submit it to all panelists using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions for your reference. All right, this is a moderator. I see no requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's been closed.
Okay, so now we will take a roll call on electing Dr. Jensen as the board's vice president. Cheryl Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Jensen?
Yes.
Gora Damian?
Yes.
Dr. Bahari?
Yes.
Dr. Patel?
Yes.
Andrew Moreno?
Yes.
And Claudia Mercado?
Yes.
Thank you. So the motion is carried, and at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jensen as the board's vice president. Congratulations, Dr. Jensen.
Thank you, everyone, for your support and faith in me, and I hope to help support the board and Dr. Buhari so that we can continue to accomplish many wonderful things.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. And the last election of officer is, I'm going to take nominations now. The position of Secretary Treasurer is now open. Do I have any nominations for Secretary Treasurer?
This is Cheryl. Am I able to nominate anyone or?
Yes.
Okay, Andrew Moreno.
Andrew Moreno, are you will you accept the position of Secretary Treasurer? Is this something that is of your interest?
Yes, as a member of the public, I would very much appreciate it and would very much be humbled to serve as the board secretary / treasurer. Thank you for the nomination.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any further nominations for the board secretary treasurer?
This is Dr. Jensen. I just wanted to second, if we can, and support Mr. Moreno in that role.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Jensen. Is there any further discussion by the board? Hearing none, I just want to clarify that that was a motion second as well from Cheryl and Dr. Jensen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment?
All right, this is a moderator, and I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public wishes to comment, please type, I would like to make a comment, using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and submit it to all panelists. This is a moderator. I see no request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's been closed.
Thank you. So hearing no public comment, the nomination has been moved and seconded. I will take a roll call. Cheryl Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Jensen?
Yes.
Thank you. Agora Damien?
Yes.
Dr. Bahari?
Yes.
Dr. Patel?
Yes.
Andrew Moreno?
Yes.
Claudia Mercado?
Yes.
Thank you. So the motion has been carried, and at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Andrew Moreno as the board's new Secretary Treasurer. Thank you, Andrew. Congratulations.
Thank you again. Thank you to the board. I very much appreciate your support. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Any further comments or? Okay, we're going to move on to agenda number 4. Review of possible approval of minutes for September 10th, 2020 and December 4th, 2020 board meetings. Any discussion by the board?
Hi, this is Maganito. I see that Dr. Jensen and Dr. Bahari have their hands up.
Hey, Dr. Jensen?
That was an old hand for me. I just took it down. Thank you.
I was going to take a motion to approve the minutes from September 10th teleconference and the December 4th teleconference.
Is there a second?
This is Andrew Moreno. I'll second that motion.
Okay, it has been moved and second. All in favor?
Sabina, if I could interrupt, we'll take some public comment first, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
All right.
Thank you very much. This is a moderator. I will go ahead and open the Q&A panel. All right, it's now available. If you'd like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists. We'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no request for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes.
Okay, it's been closed.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
This is
Should we
Sabina.
do a roll call?
Yes, this is Sabina. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Thank you, Sabine. I'll handle the roll call votes for the motion, Cheryl. So I'll take that off your plate here. We'll do a roll call here. Cheryl Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Jensen,
Yes.
Gora Damian, Gora Damian,
This is
yeah.
This is the moderator. I see Gore is logged in with audio. I can unmute him manually if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. Gore, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Yes. My system's not working right now, but yes. Hello?
Awesome. Thank you, Gore. Dr. Bahari,
Yes.
Dr. Patel,
Yes.
Andrew Moreno,
Yeah.
and Claudia Mercado.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Claudia. So we've taken the roll. We've taken the roll call, and the motion is carried. So now we can move on to the next item, Cheryl.
Agenda item number 5. Petition for early termination of probation. The purpose of the hearings today is for the board to consider a petition for early termination of probation. This proceeding is a serious matter and proper decorum must be maintained. Please make sure you keep as quiet as possible during the hearings and that you refrain from making comments or expressions that may disrupt the hearings. Your cooperation in keeping these proceedings orderly is appreciated. I will now turn the meeting over to the administrative law judge to begin the hearings.
Hi, this is the moderator, and let me take a moment now to promote the ALJ as well as petitioner participants. So if you can give me just a moment as I promote these participants. All right, and let me know when you need to go into the closed session because that will require opening a private session. So this is a moderator. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is, I'm Administrative Law Judge Juliet Cox from the State Office of Administrative Hearings, and I will be assisting the board today with this hearing. I want to make sure that we actually have everyone present that we need to have. I see that we have Dr. Maganito present. I understood from earlier, Dr. Maganito, that you have counsel, Mr. Meals. Are you present, Mr. Meals?
Yes, I am.
Okay. However, I understood also that both Mr. Meals and Dr. Maganito are in the same room, and I would caution you that only one of you should have your computer mic and speakers operating at the same time, because otherwise we'll have that feedback that we just experienced. I also see Lynn Dombrowski is present. Are you the Deputy Attorney General who will be handling this matter, Ms. Dombrowski?
Yes, Your Honor.
Wonderful, thank you. And then we should also have a stenographic reporter present for our hearing, and I'm not sure who that person will be, but I want to make sure the person is actually here. Okay, now in our participant list, I see a stenographic reporter whose name I know, Ann Lee. You're present, Ms. Lee? Are you able to unmute yourself just to make sure that I know that you can see and hear us?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm here. I can hear you. I cannot see you.
Oh, okay. Wonder why that is. Actually, I see that I'm on video, but my video is frozen for some reason. That's unfortunate.
Okay, so I did see this. I can hear you clearly. So I'll mute myself, but I'm here.
Thank you. So before we actually begin the hearing portion here, I want to make sure of a couple things. First of all, especially since we will be having a stenographic reporter, it's really very important that people mute themselves when they are not speaking so that the reporter is able to hear and take down everything that the reporter needs to take down. It's especially difficult when we have a number of people in a large panel like this, but if you can be especially mindful of that, I'd appreciate it. The other thing is I received documents, a petition and some supporting documents in this matter, and I want to make sure before we begin and go on the record that those documents are available to all of the board members so that if not, we can address that issue before we begin speaking. So do all the board members have the petition and supporting documents? Maybe Mr. Ito, you can confirm for me whether that's true.
Yes, the materials were provided to the board members.
Okay, and what I received beforehand is a 45-page packet of information which has several items in it that I presume we'll discuss in a moment. So I just wanted to be sure that everyone has those things, as I said, before we get going. Okay, in that case, then, are we ready to begin?
This is the court reporter. Yes, I'm ready to go.
Okay, then, I'm having an issue here. Hang on. Can you all hear me or not?
I can hear you, Your Honor.
Yes.
This is Lynn.
I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. The video portion of my meeting access has just tanked, so I would like to be able to see people. So if you'll give me a moment to sign back in, I'd appreciate that because I'd like to be able to see everyone. It makes it a lot easier for me to call on people, for example. So hang on just a moment. Are we ready to begin? Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, let's go on the record then, Ms. Leeds. Good morning. I'm now opening the hearing and the administrative record in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation by James Paul Ching Maganito. This matter is Osteopathic Medical Board of California, case number 900-2014-000223. It's Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2020-120314. Today is Thursday, January 14, 2021. It's approximately 10:45 in the morning, and we have assembled by video conference at a meeting of the Osteopathic Medical Board. I'm Administrative Law Judge Juliet Cox, and I will be assisting the board this morning in holding this hearing. I'd like to begin by having counsel for the representatives introduce themselves for the record, please, beginning with counsel for the petitioner.
Robert Meals.
Good morning, Mr. Meals.
Good morning, Your Honor.
And for the people?
Your Honor, good morning. General Lynn Dombrowski.
Good morning to you as well. All right, what I'd like to do to conduct this hearing is first ask Ms. Dombrowski to introduce the matter and to describe the documents that have been circulated to the board members. Then I will turn the floor over to Mr. Meals. I assume, Mr. Meals, that you'd like to make a brief opening statement and then that your client would like to testify about the reasons for his petition. So Ms. Dombrowski, would you like to begin?
Yes, Your Honor. I both want to introduce the jurisdictional documents into evidence, and I also am prepared to provide a brief factual summary of the case for the board members. So also, I want to point out that at this hearing, it's the petitioner who has the burden of proof to establish by clear and convincing evidence that the petition should be granted. But because the board is in possession of the jurisdictional documents, I'm here to present those documents and offer them into evidence at this time. As was marked as proposed Exhibit 1, it's the petition for termination of probation documents that were submitted to the board by the petitioner. I can go through them, but they comprise the petition for termination of probation forms, the notice of the decision, and denial of reconsideration by the Osteopathic Medical Board in December of 2015, the decision of the board that was dated October 6, 2015, and became effective on November 5th, 2015, that placed the petitioner on probation. There's also a copy of the accusation is attached to that as well, and also attached to that are the disciplinary documents from the Washington Board of Osteopathic Medicine and Surgery that, with their stipulated findings of fact and statement of charges. Also, there's a personal narrative by Dr. Maganito justifying the reason for his petition that was dated October 29th, 2019, 2 letters of support, and then a copy of Business and Professions Code Section 2307 that contained highlights provided by the petitioner. So I would ask for Exhibit 1 to be moved into evidence.
Okay, so you'd like to label all of those items together as number 1?
Correct.
I want to make sure that I have all of those items actually, and that they're part of what has been described, what has been circulated here. The total number of pages that I have in the materials that I've received is 45. And I don't believe that they included, for example, the letters of reference that you just described.
Well, Your Honor, Exhibit 1 has the page numbers marked, and it totals 57 pages. These materials were provided to the board to Mr. Sparks. I don't know what he did with them, but all of these, along with the index, were provided.
Oh, okay. let me ask Mr. Meals. Mr. Meals, are the 57 pages documents that Ms. Dombrowski has described as Exhibit 1, do you have those items as well?
I do, Your Honor.
And do you concur that they should be admitted and considered by the board, all of them?
I do.
Okay, then Exhibit 1 is admitted. Let me ask Mr. Ito, the documents that were circulated to the board members, do they also match what Ms. Dombrowski described?
I will defer to Corey Sparks, who is on the line to answer this question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, the petition packet is the petition packet that I received from Mr. Mills and Maganito, which was forwarded to the board members.
Great. Okay. Then Exhibit 1 will be admitted and considered. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, Ms. Dombrowski, in the way of introducing this matter for the board before I turn the floor over to Mr. Meals?
Yes, Your Honor. Also, there's an Exhibit 2 that are the quarterly reports of compliance that were received by the board that begin dated in January of 2016 and they go to November of 2020. Those have been proposed and marked as Exhibit 2, and I would ask to move those into evidence as well.
They go from, you said, November 2016 through?
No, January of 2016 to November of 2020.
Thank you. I apologize. Okay. Let me ask again then, have those documents in Exhibit 2 all been circulated to the panel members?
I will defer this question to Corey Sparks, if he can respond, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
My understanding is that the quarterly reports that were in the petition packet that I received, believe they were the same or all of them that I had received from Dr. Maganito. I believe the petition packet had a limited number of quarterly reports. I did send to Ms. Dombrowski the total of all of the quarterly reports that I had in my actual probation file. So the board members probably have a truncated or a limited amount of the quarterly reports, whereas Ms. Dombrowski has all of them. Does that make sense?
Mr. Sparks, I provided you with the whole set of the list of hearing exhibits and the PDF of all the documents several weeks ago, and it was my understanding that you were going to provide those to the board members in their packet. So I don't understand what happened, but all of those were included in the file that was sent to you.
Okay. I apologize. Was that emailed to me?
Yes, by PDF, with PDF.
Okay, let me check my email real quick.
Let's go off the record for just a moment while Mr. Sparks checks on that.
Ms. Dombrowski, do you have the date that you emailed that to me?
Well, I'm going to have to exit this and go into my emails to find it, but we've spoken several times and it was a couple weeks ago because that's, Mr. Meals received his last week and it was before that. I'm going to at least step away from my video for a moment.
I just muted. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but Dombrowski, remember she said I sent it to Mr. Meal.
This is Dr. Jensen. Can I say something for one moment?
Yes, thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to tell you that I just reviewed my packet, and where all of these reports, quarterly reports, were at the end. You had said it, where someone had said 2016 through 2020. My packet has 4 reports for 2019, 4 reports for 2018, and I can give you the months, 4 reports for 2017, and 3 reports for 2016. I don't see any 2020 reports in there unless they're in a different place in the packet. And my total packet is
Thank you.
79 pages.
Thank you. I want to make sure before we proceed with the rest of our hearing that Ms. Dombrowski, Mr. Meals, and the board members all have exactly the same items, which I will mark. We marked one as Exhibit 1 and the other will mark as Exhibit 2, or however we're going to mark them, to make sure absolutely, especially when everyone's in a different location, that we all have the very same materials to Ms. Dombrowski, you're back. Do you have anything else to?
Well, all I know is that it was sent by my secretary. She's not at her desk right now, so I can't get into her emails. I don't have a copy of it.
While you were away, board member Jensen, Dr. Jensen, told us that it sounds like if Exhibit 1 is 57 pages, she has an additional 22 pages of quarterly reports, but they don't necessarily cover the entire date range that you described. So
there are 22 pages to Exhibit 2.
Okay, that's useful knowledge.
May I, yeah, I did not receive it. And I don't doubt that it was sent to me, but it could have been sent, an incorrect address. So what could happen is maybe if one of the other participants, if they have the packet that Ms. Dombrowski sent to either Dr. Maganito and Dr. Meals, if they transfer it to me, then I can transfer that over to all the board members.
Well, I have the packet I can transfer to you by PDF. I don't know whether the volume of it, though, you're going to accept it.
Is it, how many pages is it?
I think it's a total of 96, 95.
Okay, we can try it.
Okay, let's try.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sending it now. It's 96 pages,
Okay.
including the index.
The other possibility is that the file could have been quarantined if it had personal data in it. That's another option that could have happened.
Okay. Judge Cox, do you want me to also email this to you? I don't know
Yes, please.
Can you give me your email address? Hold on, let me see. Oh, shoot. Okay. Can you give me your email?
Let's do that. Let's do that in a moment. So not right this second. So.
Okay.
Ms. Dombrowski, if the email came from your secretary, what was her name?
Her name's Sandra Adams.
Okay, I don't recall. Let me check. No, I have nothing from Sandra Adams. ADAMS?
Okay. Have you received my email?
No. Not with the material. I had discussions with you about it, but I did not receive.
I apologize to the board members on this case. I presumed that Mr. Sparks had received the documents. We had talked about it several times, so I apologize.
What I'd like to ask perhaps Mr. Ito or Ms. Williams is, would we like to take a break and try to reconvene in 10 minutes when these materials might have been received and circulated to the board?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. I would definitely take a break and take care of this offline.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we do that? Why don't we take a short break? I mean, we're already off the record. Our reporter is not reporting everything we say right now. Why don't we plan to reconvene at, say, 11:10, or do we need a little longer? Might we try 11:15?
Yes.
Yeah, let's say 11:15 to make sure.
Okay, and that way people can step away, get a drink, do whatever while we're trying to resolve, come back and make sure that everyone has the correct documents and we can proceed with our hearing.
And just a suggestion, Dr. Jensen had mentioned she received 79 pages, and I think the board received 79 pages. So there was an addendum, is that what you're saying, of an additional 16 pages? Can you just look for the addendum rather than resend 90-some pages?
Yeah, I can send. I have those documents in a PDF, a separate PDF that I can send.
Okay. All right.
Let's try to figure out how to. Yes, we'll figure out how to do this, and we'll plan to begin again about 11:15.
Okay. Thank you.
Corey, are you still on the line?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, we've got to figure.
All right, this is a moderator. I'm just checking to make sure I get all of the board members. And I'm not finding Claudia, so I don't know if Claudia logged off.
Why would she log off? Just freaking late to the meeting to begin.
Right. All right, so we don't need her for a quorum, and all the other board members are back. And this is the moderator. This is a moderator, and all board members are back, including Claudia.
Okay, and are we also, again, visible to the public?
You are, and I will go ahead and start the recording again.
Okay,
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. Okay, we have come back to our meeting. I apologize to everyone involved for the delay. We needed to make sure that we could circulate all of the correct hearing exhibits for this petition hearing. And before we go back on the record, I do want to, actually, Madam Moderator, we also need Ms. Leitz back in our meeting.
This is the moderator. I apologize. She has been promoted back to being a panelist, so
Great,
welcome back
thank you.
again.
Thank you. So before we go back on the record, though, and resume the reported portion of our hearing, Mr. Sparks had circulated to all of the board members an additional, I believe it was 38 pages of documents that Ms. Dombrowski is getting ready to describe. And I'd like to make sure that each of the board members received that email so that you all will be available, you'll be ready you'll be able to look at those items when Ms. Dombrowski has described them and assuming I admit them into evidence. Does everybody have that additional email that Mr. Sparks and the document attached to it that Mr. Sparks just circulated? I see some nodding. Okay. Maybe I'll say, if anyone didn't just receive that, if you would raise your hand or do something to make sure that we can troubleshoot that problem for you before we press on. Okay, looks like everyone must have it. Ms. Dombrowski, are you still there with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay, great. Then, Ms. Leitz, can we go back on the record?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let's go back on the record. All right, we're back on the record in the matter of Dr. Maganito. I apologize for our delay. I believe when we left off before, Ms. Dombrowski, you had described for us Exhibit 1, and I had admitted it into evidence, and you had begun to describe what you were going to, Exhibit 2, I think?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, please.
And now I believe that everybody has been provided with copies of these documents, but Exhibit 2 are the quarterly reports of probation compliance that are dated from January of 2016 through November of 2020. And I'd ask to move those into evidence.
All right, Mr. Meals, is there any objection to Exhibit 2?
No, Your Honor.
And Exhibit 2 is admitted.
And as marked as Exhibit 3 is a board receipt dated December 11th, 2015, that is a receipt for Dr. Maganito's payment of cost recovery in the amount of $1,000.
Mr. Meals, will there be any objection to number 3 becoming part of the evidence?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, 3 is admitted.
As marked as Exhibit 4 is a letter dated December 6th, 2015, that the petitioner sent to the board, which includes documents related to his Washington state license and the termination of his probation there. I'd like to move that into evidence.
Will there be any objection to number 4?
No, Your Honor.
4 is admitted.
And then marked as Exhibit 5 is the email notice of hearing that the board sent to the petitioner and his attorney.
Any objections?
And I would like to
number
move that
5?
into evidence.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor. No objection, Your Honor.
5 is admitted. Okay. All right. So with exhibits 1 through 5, Ms. Dombrowski, what else would you like to state before I turn the floor over to Mr. Mills?
Well, now that the exhibits, can everybody see me because I can't see my video? Am I on video?
You are not presently on video.
Okay. Moderator?
This is the moderator. It looks like you've lost connection for your video. You can try clicking on the start video at the bottom of your screen to see if that renews it. And so the little triangle suggests that you've lost connection for that feature right at this time. It may come back.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and just do it by orally. Okay. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm just going to go proceed. Apologize for that as well. But now that the exhibits are into evidence, I also would like to provide the board with a brief summary of the background facts, a chronology of the events that led to this point, and regarding the nature and status of Dr. Maganito's probation to give some context to the petition. So I'd like to start with the, Mr. Mills, you may want to mute yourself. Okay. More than 8 years ago, on September 20th of 2012, the state of Washington's Board of Osteopathic Medicine and Surgery filed a statement of charges against Dr. Maganito, and it alleged one incident that occurred in June of 2011 in connection with his delivery of a baby who died about 3 weeks after birth due to complications that were in part related to the delivery. The incident occurred while the petitioner, Dr. Maganito, was employed by the Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic, where he worked from July of 2009 to July of 2011 as a physician in obstetrics and gynecology. On December 19th, 2012, Dr. Maganito entered into a stipulated agreement and order with the Washington State Board in which he admitted to unprofessional conduct on June 16th, 2011. And he admitted that he failed to adequately monitor the fetal heart monitor while performing a vacuum extraction delivery, and that he failed to sufficiently document an indication for an assisted vaginal delivery and failed to note the variability on the fetal heart tracing. He stipulated with the Washington State Board to be placed on probation for 5 years, starting on December 19th, 2012. The terms of the Washington State Board probation required him to obtain an evaluation of his obstetric clinical skills, which he satisfactorily completed in 2013 through the PACE program at the UC San Diego School of Medicine. It was PACE's recommendation that he complete a re-entry education program in obstetrics and that he practice under the supervision of a proctor prior to resuming an independent practice of obstetrics. Not because his performance in obstetrics was deficient, his performance or knowledge in obstetrics was deficient, but because he had not practiced obstetrics for a couple of years at the time of the evaluation. So on August 28, 2014, the Washington Board modified the probation practice restrictions so that he was precluded from providing obstetrical care to patients except in an approved re-entry program. And upon successful completion of the re-entry program, he would be permitted to perform obstetrics, but then only with supervision by a proctor. This board, the Board of Osteopathic Medical Board of California, learned about the out-of-state discipline in Washington, and on September 17, 2014, filed an accusation against Dr. Maganito based on the Washington State's findings and discipline. While the California accusation was pending, Dr. Maganito remained on probation in the state of Washington, and in June 2015, he enrolled in a 3-year fellowship training in advanced urogynecology. On July 24, 2015, the Washington Board issued a second modified order, agreed order, with stipulated findings of fact, conclusions of law, and an agreed order regarding Dr. Maganito's probation. In that order, he was required to practice under the supervision of a proctor and to complete at least 5 proctored vaginal deliveries and at least 5 proctored deliveries by cesarean section. Upon completion of those 10 proctored deliveries, the proctor was required to make a written recommendation to the Washington Board as to whether Dr. Maganito could be released from the probation restrictions or whether he needed additional proctored obstetric care. On August 6, 2015, a few weeks after the second modified agreed order issued in Washington State, there was an administrative hearing in Oakland, California on the board's accusation, at which Dr. Maganito was present and represented by counsel, his attorney also today, Mr. Meals. This board adopted the ALJ's proposed decision as its decision and order in the case against Dr. Maganito on October 6, 2015, which became effective on November 6, 2015. The board's decision and order provided for a state license revocation and 35 months of probation, with special terms and conditions that mirrored the Washington State's discipline. Those terms were no solo practice, that he needed a practice plan for a supervised, structured environment by a physician who shall act as his proctor and provide periodic reports. Also, it was specifically required that he complete 5 proctored vaginal deliveries and 5 proctored deliveries by cesarean section. After those 10 proctored deliveries, the proctor was required to report whether additional proctored obstetric care was required. And then respondent was also required to pay $1,000 in cost recovery. So on October 19th, 2015, before the effective date of the decision, respondent filed a petition for reconsideration. And on December 6, 2015, after the effective date of the decision, he sent a letter to the board with documents related to his Washington license and discipline, which has been marked and admitted as Exhibit 4. In that letter, he provided documents that indicated that he had successfully completed the required 10 proctored deliveries, and his proctor, he included a letter from the proctor, which was sent to the Washington State Board recommending that he be released from his probation restrictions and have unrestricted obstetrical privileges. Also in that packet was an order of completion of conditions from the State of Washington's Board of Osteopathic Medicine and Surgery that was dated November 6, 2015, which found that he had complied with the probation terms in Washington State, and it returned his Washington State license to unrestricted status. At that time, he had completed almost 35 months of probation out of the initial 5 years of the Washington State probation and discipline. This board issued a notice of denial of the reconsideration that had been submitted on October 19th, 2015. They issued that notice of denial of reconsideration on December 21st, 2015, and it is part of the petition package at page 13 of Exhibit 1. It was deemed denied by operation of law, and they upheld the effective date, the original effective date of the decision, which was November 5th, 2015. This meant that there wasn't any consideration of the documents that, apparently there was no consideration of the documents that Dr. Maganito had provided to the board on December 6th, 2015 regarding the status of the Washington State discipline. In his first quarterly report to the board dated January 7th, 2016, which was by letter, it's Exhibit 2, Hearing Exhibit 2 at page 22. Dr. Maganito mentions getting verbal acceptance of completion of the requirement of the 10 proctor deliveries from the Osteopathic Medical Board of California. He also reported that he was currently a fellow, a female pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery fellow at Advanced Urogynecology of Michigan, as well as an associate medical director for Blue Cross Blue Shields of Montana. In his second quarterly probation report dated April 8, 2016, Dr. Maganito reported to the OMBC that he had resigned from the fellowship program that he had previously enrolled in, but was continuing his administrative position with the Blue Cross Blue Shields of Montana. It is my understanding that the board determined that as of February 29, 2016, which was the date of his resignation program, his probation began to toll because he no longer was in an intensive training program, nor was he practicing medicine in California. Thus, it's now been almost 5 years that his probation has been in a tolled status. He has, however, continued to submit quarterly reports to the board as evidenced by the reports in Exhibit 2. The board received Dr. Maganito's petition for termination of probation on or about November 18th of 2019. It includes a written personal narrative in support of his petition and 2 physician letters of support, which are part of Exhibit 1. Those are the basic background facts of where we are today for the hearing on the petition for termination of probation. I'm sure that you will hear from Dr. Maganito about his current practice and what has happened during his California probation time and his reasons for seeking a termination of that probation. So I will turn over this matter to Mr. Meals, his attorney, to present the petitioner's case.
Thank you, Ms. Dombrowski. Mr. Meals, I can't see you, although if you'd like us to be able to see you, you can make that possible. Would you like to make any short opening statement for the board, or would you like to begin simply by calling your client to testify?
Your Honor, thank you. Whether you all want to see me or not is up to you. I'm 78 years old, so you might not.
Go ahead, sir.
The first thing I'd like to do is introduce 2 additional exhibits, which we have designated Exhibits 6 and 7. Exhibit 6, which I sent electronically to Mr. Sparks a day or 2 ago, is simply a description of Dr. Maganito's job at the Veterans Administration in Montana, where he's chief of staff for the state. And the other, Exhibit 7, is his most recent evaluation at the Veterans Administration in Montana, and it's simply to update the board on his current activities.
Okay, let's get on to the board members. Mr. Meals, you say that you distributed Exhibits 6 and 7 also to Mr. Sparks for distribution to the board members?
I did, but just within the last couple of days.
All right, Mr. Sparks, do the board members have those items that Mr. Meals has just described?
Yes, I forwarded those over to board members earlier this morning.
Okay. Ms. Dombrowski, do you also have copies of what Mr. Meals has described as Exhibits 6 and 7?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Okay, that's great. Do you have any objection to Exhibit 6?
No.
Okay, 6 will be admitted then. And how about to number 7? Do you have any objection to number 7?
No, Your Honor.
7 is also admitted. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Meals. What's next?
Thank you. I'll be very brief because Ms. Dombrowski's description of the events that go back 9.5 years was accurate. I'll simply say that this is a very unusual case. I would venture to say it might even be unique because what the result of all of what's happened over a 9-year period of time that goes back to one case in June of 2011 is that for some time now, since the fall of 2015, when the California out-of-state proceeding to some extent overlapped what was the end of the Washington disciplinary process, the order that the California board, the operative order today, is still Exhibit 1E, which is the Osteopathic Medical Board of California's order dated October 16, 2015. And the difficulty's been that Dr. Maganito has done everything in his power to satisfy all of those conditions, and essentially has, except for the one where Ms. Dombrowski was saying that he would have to be in a supervised situation, no solo practice, that he would have to have a proctor who would report to the board and so forth. And Dr. Maganito, I expect, will testify about the problems he's had in trying to make arrangements to do that, and it's essentially become impossible. So instead of being a practicing OBGYN since, he is an OBGYN who practices gynecology only with the Veterans Administration here in Montana, because as most of you probably know, the Veterans Administration does not offer obstetrical services. So he is doing surgery, he's doing gynecologic surgery. He is also the chief of staff for the entire state of Montana. The reason that he's asked for termination, California order, is because it's essentially impossible at this point to satisfy all the conditions that were in that order. And so what we're asking is that he either be excused from those conditions or that they be waived, simply so that he would have an unrestricted license, which otherwise the probation has caused him considerable difficulty in even the position he's been able to achieve here in Montana. And he'll explain all of that further, and that's why we're asking for this relief. That said, I would call Dr. Maganito to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. I believe the board would probably like to be able to see Mr. Maganito while he testifies. Certainly it'll make it a little bit easier to follow his testimony. Can we make him visible?
Sure.
All right. I can see you now, Dr. Maganito. That's great. Thank you. I'll let you get settled. All right, sir, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you will give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'll ask our reporter, if you have any difficulty, since Dr. Maganito has his face covered, if you have any difficulty understanding what he says, don't hesitate to let us know. All right, go ahead, Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your full name for the record, Dr. Maganito.
We can't hear you, sir.
We're getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, only one computer or speakers in the room should be operative at a time. Off the record.
If you'll give us just a minute, we're going to arrange it so that we don't have this feedback problem.
Appreciate that.
So,
let us know when you're ready.
can you folks hear me? Oh, can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm trying
yes, we can.
I have my computer that has the video.
Now we can't. When you're looking away from the microphone, it makes it doesn't pick up very well.
Let's do that. Does that work?
Yes.
Sounds great. Sorry, we have to kind of use a single computer. My apologies for all the disruption here.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Go ahead,
So,
Mr. Meals, you had asked Dr. Maganito to state and spell his name, right?
my full name is James Paul Ching Maganito. Spelling James space Paul. Middle initial is C, although it stands for Ching, which is Ching. Last name is Maganito. That's Maganito. I reside currently, as of last Wednesday, in Bozeman, Montana. My current address, for the record, is 1572.
No need for your current address. Thank you. I can't hear Mr. Meals' questions is the problem. Go ahead.
Dr. Maganito, what is your occupation today?
My occupation today is Montana VA Chief of Staff, the staff gynecological surgeon at Montana VA Healthcare System.
And with regard to your current position, is Exhibit 6 a description of the scope of your duties?
Yes.
And with regard to...
Yes, ma'am.
And with regard to your work at the Veterans Administration in Montana, is Exhibit 7 the your evaluation for the most recent year of your work from 2019 to the fall of 2020?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to go back very briefly to the origins of the issue in this case, beginning with the case in Yakima. Can you briefly describe not what happened there, which is in the documents that the board has, but the remedial steps that you took after you entered into an order with the Washington Commission?
Yeah, absolutely. So as soon as I entered an order with the Washington State, I immediately went into the PACE program in UC San Diego. My mentor there was Dr. Nager, who is a world-renowned urogynecologist, female team member at their UC San Diego Medical School, who focused specifically on obstetrics. And essentially, I did pass that particular course. Now, when I say pass, it certainly made him scratch his head, because apparently I passed with flying colors with no deficit. And essentially, the reason for me needing to be proctored further and recommendations for reentry program was simply because of times. And after that, I immediately went and sought out the only reputable reentry program, which is Drexel University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, whereby my mentor there was Dr. Delvadia, who's a faculty member at their medical school as well, who happens to be an osteopath as well. And during my time there, although the reentry program was only typically 6 weeks, I spent time there well over 8 weeks. And the reason for that was it was during winter and Christmas break. I spent the time there, extra time, just out of my own cognizance, because I wanted to get the most out of the experience, making sure that I was able to do what I needed to do. My experience there were I was with the residents. I got to a point where I was teaching the residents, ironically enough, and did the deliveries there hands-on with the attendings. And if I can go back to the PACE program, they had a simulation, a mannequin that we did at least 7 to 9 cases, I believe, that included all emergency obstetrical maneuvers. During my time, now going forward again, I'm sorry for the going back and forth here. Going forward to the reentry program, I was involved in being first assist. There were times where I was the main surgeon because they knew that I had experience and some skill set. And at that point, once I showed them my skill set, they ended up just assigning a resident to me, and I pretty much was kind of a pseudo attending for them. I do love teaching. I have an education background, a minor in it, and from University of California, Davis, as a biochemist. So I enjoyed that environment, and I did as long as I could. And I think that answers the question, Mr. Mills.
Conditions of the Washington agreed order was that you would perform 10 deliveries, 5 vaginal deliveries and 5 C-sections. Did you complete that?
Yes, and actually beyond that.
Then ultimately, did you satisfy all the conditions for reinstatement of an unrestricted license in Washington State?
Yes.
Now, I want to turn back to August 2015 regarding the California hearing, which is an out-of-state proceeding. You and I were at that hearing, and that resulted in the order that is Exhibit 1E, the decision of the California Osteopathic Medical Board on October 6, 2015. You're familiar with that order, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And can you just describe for the board now everything that you've done first to try to satisfy all of the conditions in the California order so that the probation could be terminated?
Just for the board and Your Honor, if I may, I tried consistently to try to satisfy the California requirements by calling locum tenens almost to a monthly basis, if not a weekly basis initially. I can't even tell you how many times I've tried to do that. I wish I can provide the board with some sort of written, but most of these locum tenens typically talk to you if you've ever experienced or had any experience with locum tenens. They'll talk to you initially before they even put anything in writing, and more times than not, as soon as I talk to them and they look into my background, the answer is always, no, unfortunately, you have a probation in California. That said, since that time in Oakland, California, I had been fortunate enough to have applied to, at that point, was the only osteopathic urogynecology and female pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery fellowship with Dr. Salil Khandwala, as noted by Ms. Dombrowski, who's the attending at Advanced Urogynecology of Michigan. At that time, I applied. There were other applicants. I was selected. He became a mentor. And I sought that fellowship out, one, because at that point I was doing only gynecology. It was certainly very evident that I cannot go back to obstetrics regardless of what I try to do. A part of the requirements for a fellowship program is to be able to take call in the labor and delivery suite. That then gave me an opportunity to be able to, again, show that I'm by an attending who is Dr. Krazat, and was on call for the labor and delivery department near Dearborn, Michigan. I did my 5 deliveries, 5 C-sections, which was also the requirements of the hospital. Being a new, even though I was the fellow, I was because I was taking a call, I was noted to be an attending. Because of their requirements, obviously, I was able to satisfy that and was hoping that that would satisfy the requirements for California at that point. Since that time, I actually took some call to be able to, as a fellow, again, I had to take call and be able to do labor and delivery, and which I did. It's it's certainly, even at that time, I was still trying to do locum tenens positions. I just simply cannot. I can even tell you, even just most recently, I had talked to Merritt Hawkins, and I hope I'm saying that correctly as far as our the name of the locum tenens, about my situation, and still I still got rejected. And usually it's a pretty quick call. They ask for my information and they look into my background, and I usually get a phone call or a message in my mobile saying, unfortunately, we can't, you're under probation. Let alone the most recent one is the last time you delivered a baby was back in your fellowship. And at this point, most hospitals will frown upon that. And so I have not gotten any opportunities to be able to satisfy this in California by any means.
You withdrew from the fellowship in Michigan in February 2016, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain to the board why you did that?
Yeah, I certainly can. You know, as most of the physicians in the board know, a fellowship program is not something to be taken lightly. It was certainly a privilege to be selected out of over 300 applicants. In a few words, if anything, I can put it into three summations. Number one is it was financially crippling. Number two, I was unsupervised for a majority of the time I was there. And the last thing that broke the straw, if you will, was that my family was unhappy.
In February 2016. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Start over. Yeah, start over, please.
When you withdrew from the fellowship in Michigan in February 2016, what did you do after that?
If I may, Mr. Meals, I'd like to continue on with why. I think it would behoove the board and Your Honor if I can expound on why I quit the fellowship program. Sorry, I was pausing because I was getting a little bit emotional about the situation. If I may, is that okay, Your Honor?
Certainly, if you have something else to say to finish your answer, you should.
Thank you, ma'am. So number one was the financial crippling. So that you folks know, that fellowship was new. I would have been the first osteopathic physician to undergo a supposed structured urogynecology FPMRS fellowship. And I was only getting paid $30,000 yearly. And I was in charge of my own malpractice insurance. Now, you think about that and you may think, well, it's urogynecology. He probably just paid for gynecology. I need to remind the board I had to take my own call in labor and delivery. Therefore, I was in charge of my own insurance. I talked to my mentor about that. He said that is his program. He did indicate that in the contractual agreements, and I took it for what it is, because at that point, I felt I needed to correct what had happened to me, especially in California. As far as being unsupervised, my first 2 months with him was supervised. There was obviously no structured educational opportunities, which I expressed to him I needed, and reminded him that I did leave a very comfortable job at the VA as a gynecologist and an associate director at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Montana. And he said, well, come up with your own and show it to me, and then we'll make it happen. Other than that, I was told to attend all the resident OBGYN lectures. I then subsequently created my own lecture series because, like I said, I love education. And that continued on. And he knew my skill set, having had experience in the private sector, at least in Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic. He was able to comfortably leave me in the clinic. I don't, physicians leave practice to be left alone to do another practice at $32K. And I felt that it was a bit overreaching. Some fellows and residents would love for their attendings to be left alone, but my mission there was to learn and be taught, be mentored. And in his words, I would have been the grandfather, the founding father of urogynecology, because he was the son of that, and he was trained in Europe. That said, it's not in my nature to not be upfront and transparent. I approached him within 4 months' time, asked him for certain things, if not pursued certain things. Being unsupervised in the clinic, I had under me a PA, a physician assistant, 4 to 6 MAs that I had to manage, doing multiple things, and on top of that, seeing my own patient load, and co-sign each and every one of their notes. When I say just seeing patients, it is not just seeing patients. We did tibial nerve stimulations, we did urodynamics, and we did cystoscopies and urethrocytoscopies in the clinic, as well as pelvic organ rehab. So all that put together, I still went and pursued other avenues to learn, because I knew I had to take action if I wanted to get something out of the fellowship. And that included a possible rotation in South Africa regarding, as some of you might know, there's some mutilation of the pelvic organ in that area. If not, they leave their patients unchecked and unrepaired. And I offered it to him. I had everything set up. He declined that. I also, within 1 month's time, was able to do a case study on urethral prolapse, and he refused to sign that, stating that I'm going too fast, that this was a 3-year fellowship. Simultaneously, I had enough energy because I was very enthusiastic. If you get to know me, unfortunately, this is just a closed session. When I'm enthusiastic about something, I go for it, and I go for it with my whole heart and soul. I went ahead and reviewed over 2,000 of his cases using certain meshes and found that there were some complications to those meshes. And I subsequently reported that to him, and he refused to sign, stating that this was a bread and butter of urogynecology, and this would essentially show the complications of what we have to deal with. And again, he quoted me, he said to me that I was going way too fast for a fellow. As you can see, there was a lot of barriers. I took it upon myself to call the FDA regarding that, not to say that my own efforts were the reasons why, but if you look back in 2016, the FDA did come out with a black box warning against all, if not a couple of the meshes that we used. That said, the last one was unhappy family. If you are familiar with Dearborn Mission, it's a whole different culture. My family, my girls, I have 2 girls, currently 12 years old and 9. I kid around that I'm not sure what I would do with a boy, seeing I'm an OBGYN. But at that time, my wife and I knew that by the end of this fellowship, we would have nothing. The reason we would have nothing is we had nothing to begin with. If you look at my narrative, the reason why I left, when I got fired from Yakima, I had to pay back as a National Health Service Scholar over $620,000 of loan because I couldn't fulfill my requirements for time in an underserved area. And working in the VA, as you know, is not the highest paying job, but it's certainly fulfilling to serve our veterans. We were still paying off that debt and continue to pay so. By the end of that fellowship, I would only have less than $200 in the bank. And that has certainly closed all of our finances. That is the only amount of money I would have had. and my family was suffering with that. A very small apartment. What made them unhappy even further is the different culture. My girls wanted to play with certain individuals, but their families won't allow them. They were wanting more, and reflected back on what had happened in Montana. I could have handled the financial crippling. My wife and I talk about it. We are very rational. We are very calculating individuals. We could have handled the unsupervisedness of my fellowship, but I couldn't for the life of me not prioritize my girls. At that point, and sorry that I'm getting a little emotional. My 9-year-old at that time was in pre-kindergarten and was inappropriately touched by another boy. And those kind of things, it really hits your core, as you can see in my reaction. And that was it. And I left. I was still medical director. What does that mean? That means I still reviewed cases and either denied or approved based on criteria. I did that when I was able to, when I was asked to do it. It was an hourly pay, best I can. And so with all those three things, Your Honor, that's really the biggest reason why I had left. And I'm going to end it at that. And if Mr. Mills can repeat his last question, I would like that.
When you left Michigan, it was in February 2016, is that correct?
Yes, sir, 2016.
And then you returned to Montana?
Yes, sir.
And when that happened, did you make some efforts to try to find some position in California so that you could fulfill the remaining conditions in the board's order?
Yes, sir. Not only California, but I did try in other states that I had licensed in. As you well know, I have a license. When I had left for that fellowship, by then I had my California license, my Washington license, my Michigan license, as well as my Montana license. So I focus, as always, like I said before, I focused on California to be able to solve a problem there, but simultaneously I was applying to any place that would take me, including any federal opportunities, because as most of you know, federal government work will allow any medical license in any state.
You said you returned to Montana. You came back to Helena, the capital, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Finally found a position with the Veterans Administration.
Actually, sir, when I first moved to Montana, it was strictly to work for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Montana. I had applied there. I can tell you I had received a couple of job offers, one of which is in Illinois, North Chicago, at the Department of Defense. And I wish I remembered it's James something or rather, I'm sorry, to be their chief of surgery there and be able to process all the female soldiers going through all the armed forces. The second offer I got was in Montana to essentially take back the job that I had previously had, but in a part-time basis, half-time. At that point, I had asked my family where they want to go, and unanimously we said Montana. So I declined the Illinois work in North Chicago and went to Montana. When I got to Montana, unfortunately, around that time, there was a hiring freeze. That hiring freeze then left me no job other than the on-call for the associate medical directorship. Now, fortunately for me, as I do think things happen for a reason, including this and the events that have happened to me, the medical director at Blue Cross Blue Shield in 2016 had subsequently got a job at the Montana VA at Fort Harrison, which is adjacent to Helena, Montana. And he had recommended that I be highly considered for the position as a medical director. So in 2016, around we had moved then, but by May of that year, I had just went into administration because, like I said, I have not stopped trying to go and do other places so that I can satisfy California probation and continue to move on from that. And subsequently, as the years progressed, I went from medical director 1 year. The following year, because of the efforts in their words, my potential to be even better for them, for us as an insurance company, I became the executive medical director. The following year, my name was put in the hat to compete for the chief medical officer job. And that was within a 3-year to almost 4-year time frame, 3-year time frame, sorry. And that's where I did after the fellowship, sir.
What is the job description that you have today with the Veterans Administration?
It's Montana VA Chief of Staff.
And can you just briefly describe the scope of what you do today?
Yeah, a lot of times chief of staff seems to be a catchword, but I am responsible. That particular position, again, I had to compete for. I had to be nominated for. My job is essentially overseeing the entire state of Montana and its providers, some nursing staff, and this also means every department that belongs to the Montana VA healthcare system. And just to outline that, I am in charge and the chair of credentialing and privileging. That particular team reports to me for the state of Montana. The radiology department, pathology, laboratory, internal medicine, med surgery, general surgery, the care, which some of you might be aware of, is a way for veterans to get their care outside the community. I also see the women's health program in the state of Montana. And I also oversee, I'm sure I missed saying, the entire primary care system within Montana. And that includes 3 what we call CBOC, which is community-based office clinics. 14 of them stretched out in the entire state. And I also oversee the quality of those particular providers. And I don't think I'm missing anything else. I do the other kind of oddball individual or team that reports to me is what the VA calls group practice management. And we focus on access of care within the VA system, as well as kind of the financial ramifications of that.
Do you also do surgery, gynecologic surgery today?
Yes, sir, I do. I can confidently say that I'm the only chief of staff in the entire world VA system that works 0.25 FTE. That means I work between 8 to more realistically 12 hours where I do clinic and surgery. Now why am I making an emphasis of that? The reason is it took them almost 5 months to really confer me as the chief of staff, as I insisted that the way I lead is that I have to be amongst the people that do the day-to-day operations. I think because of that, I have been able to make those changes within the VA system faster than any other of the chief of staff, because I can feel, see, and know the frustrations of our day-to-day staff. I do surgeries on a weekly basis. That's roughly about 2 to 3 cases. And I do have a 4 to 6 hour clinic on a regular basis, seeing roughly between, at the slowest, due to COVID, of course, 2 patients all the way up to about 6 patients in a half a day. That said, one thing I'd like to point out, I am, as the chief of staff, in charge of the COVID efforts. And I have to oversee the operations of that, implementing prior to even anyone else in the state that had the COVID response. And lately, of course, the vaccination, and I'm glad to say we were able to administer over 300 vaccines to our high-risk veteran population here in Montana.
The unfulfilled conditions of the California board relate to the safe practice of obstetrics as well as gynecology. And my question to you is, if you could find a position that involved practicing obstetrics even now, is there a safety check to be sure that, and this would be anywhere in the United States, a safety check that would ensure whether or not you were competent and qualified to practice safe obstetrics?
Yes, sir. So I've been, like I said, things happen for a reason. And fortunately enough for me, as the medical director at Blue Cross Blue Shield, I became the lead in their medical policy, as well as I was the chair of their credentialing and privileging. As the chief medical officer, I oversaw the qualifications of all the providers that are under our Blue Cross Blue Shield of Montana insurance. Because I am the chief of staff of Montana VA, I am the chair of the, like I said earlier, credentialing and privileging, who reports to me directly. But also I am in charge of and the chair of the peer review committee, as well as the healthcare delivery. Now that's a lot of words. Essentially, I've had experience in the quality of work and overseeing providers, and which I find ironic that I'm in this position. And I'm saying that because I certainly understand why the board did this. I have no ill will towards any of this. I don't focus on the problem, but I'd rather focus. I usually focus on the solution. If you haven't gotten that from me yet, I can tell you that when you're doing credentialing and privileging for certain individuals, regardless if they're Montana, California, there's a process that really it's the hospital that proctors an individual provider. Yeah, FPPE. Yes, sir. The FPP is a functional performance of an individual provider. FPPE is not unique to the VA. I'm sure some of the physicians, whether or not you are aware of it or not, in any hospital, regardless of how many years you have been in any practice, will need to perform a functional performance evaluation of any provider. At the VA, I can tell you that is between 60 to 90 days. And it's actually a specific number of cases. It's a specific number of not just cases that they oversee with you, become the first assist, but also perform the surgery yourself and be observed doing that. Same in other hospitals, it's the same way. When I graduated from Botsford Hospital and I took on that job and got recruited for Yakima to be a faculty member at the Pacific Northwest University, I had to be proctored, obviously, because I was new. In that time frame, I remember meeting a new OBGYN that was out in practice for over 20 years, and that individual still had to be proctored. Obviously, with even me having gynecological privileges prior to my fellowship, I had to be proctored on those as well to get the hospital privileges for taking call in the hospital as an OBGYN, because it's not just labor and delivery suite. You can be called, if you're on call, you can be called to the ER to do those procedures. So regardless of the fact I have thousands of cases under my belt that included multiple different types of procedures in a particular operating time, I still had to be proctored. It's a part of any hospital protocol. And from that's when you evaluate the particular provider as to whether or not they can be credentialed or privileged in particular procedures that they have performed.
You said you perform gynecologic surgery with the VA now. Do you do any obstetrical work?
Obstetrical work, like Mr. Mills said earlier, is very limited if not non-existent in the VA. Obviously, when we have a patient come in, the old adage is still true in obstetrics and gynecology is If someone is bleeding or not bleeding, the first thing you do is, regardless of what you're doing to a particular female patient, is a urine pregnancy or a blood pregnancy test, right? I think all of us can agree as far as physician, that is, you know, if you have a multiple choice and that has to be the answer because you got to check for pregnancy. So I'm illustrating that because up to what point do I see a patient? If I find out a patient is pregnant, we have a protocol by which we do all the labs for those obstetric patients and be able to see them, evaluate them, and start them on any kind of medications that need to be started, and then be able to transfer them out to the community because we obviously don't follow them during or intrapartum. Now, as far as postpartum is concerned, we do get postpartum follow-ups because we are able to do that. Majority of the time is to make sure the veteran, I'm going to pause there and say veterans are quite unique in their situation. There are certain women veterans that unfortunately have had PTSD from exposures with war, or PTSD exposed to MST, which is military sexual trauma. We have those resources for them. Most of the women after they deliver have said they like to see me. We can do the tubal ligation afterwards. So that's to the extent of what I do in that relates to obstetrics. And then the last thing that relates to obstetrics is infertility issues. So obviously infertility is more gynecological. Once they are able to get pregnant, we do those same labs, we see them initially, and then we send them out to the community. And then not until afterwards will we see them 4 to 6 weeks postpartum.
All right, just a few more questions. Do you have unrestricted licenses to practice in other states, and if so, which ones?
I think it was pointed out earlier by Mr. Dombrowski. I do have an unrestricted license in the state of Washington, an unrestricted license in the state of Michigan, and I also have an unrestricted license in the state of Montana.
And do you believe you can safely practice medicine in any of those states?
I've obviously, yes, I've obviously done so in Michigan. I can be confident that I would be able to do such as that in Washington as well as here in Montana. I have been recruited as far as being able to work as a gynecologist here. What is difficult is the fact that, like I said earlier, in any hospital credentialing and privileging, you must have done some sort of obstetrics in the past couple of years. And unfortunately, that is a closed door at this point, although I'm not seeking that.
You have asked the board to terminate your probation in this proceeding, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What are the reasons for that request?
The biggest reason, if you will, is number one, I have essentially jumped the typical career of an OBGYN. Now, what does that mean? That means usually in the lifespan of a typical OBGYN, most of their beginning years surrounds doing obstetrics. I can tell you my panel back in Yakima was well over 80% obstetrics and minimally so gynecology. As the years progress, what were to stay in a particular area, you have delivered those individuals, you create a rapport, and then they become gynecological and they stop. What I'm telling the board is I have not done obstetrics. I don't plan on doing obstetrics. I have essentially chosen to focus on gynecology. As an example, my chief resident when I was a second year graduated and chose to just become gynecologist. She chose it. I chose to just stay as a gynecologist. Now that hasn't stopped me from trying to close the issue in California, like I said, and I will continue to do so if that's the case. But again, there are certain limitations to being able to pursue such an order. I will gladly do what it is that the board wants, but yes, I would like to terminate it because I do feel I have contributed to society beyond I can share with this board. You know, I do think things happen for a reason. If you look at my educational background, right, I'm not just a DO. I'm the only DO that has graduated with 4 degrees in 4 years, right? I have a master's in public health with an epidemiology emphasis. I have a master's in healthcare administration. I'm a certified health education specialist, and I'm a certified computer information specialist. That's why I was able to help Mr. Mills and his computer problems. Now, if I was there, I'd probably be able to help you folks too. The point is, I have been a contributing part of society. If you have seen in part what's going on in Montana, nothing much is going on. Why? Because I implemented closures of our community living centers back in November when people thought I was crazy about this whole COVID issue. I am Filipino, I am Asian descent, I have Chinese in my blood. I can tell you, I know the language, I hear things from Asia, I saw it coming. I implemented a incident command, and I became the incident commander, of course, because I implemented it back in January, by which I invited all stakeholders in Montana, and you would be amazed how everyone looked at me as if I was some crazy idiot, I have to say. By doing so, I'm ahead. We received 1,500 vaccine in December of 23. I can tell you all those are out of our hands. Why? Because I made sure we went through the process of vaccination delivery months before this occurred. It's unfortunate, you know, I have to admit, when I see things in California, I wish I can help. And guess what? I am helping because I have written certain protocols that the VA is using in your own state. And I'm glad I can help people. And that's really what I am here for.
Just one more question. Dr. Maganito, has the ongoing probation of your California license caused you any problems or difficulties in your career since August of 2015?
Yes, sir. In a word, yes. It's, how can I put this? It's a constant strain on myself. Of course, it has been a constant strain on my family to know that in any time, even as I speak, I can lose a job. If you see in my letter to the board, October of the year in 2019, I was approached by my executive director, Dr. Judy Heyman here in Montana VA, and said that just an FYI, there's a whistleblower complaint against you that you are unfit or do not qualify to be the chief of staff for such a VA system. If you can imagine, and I don't know if you guys all are familiar in Montana, and please stop me if you are, the entire state of Montana can fit in the Northeast region where there are over 34 medical centers, and yet I have to oversee one for over 53,000 veterans. That's a lot to say, right? I can tell you, I love my job. I felt that there was a calling for me prior to all the events in Yakima. I was already looking into work for the VA because I wanted to simplify my life. Back in 2010, December of 2010, and I know all these events happened in June of 2011. I can tell you that my wife approached me and said, this is not going to work out. Not our marriage, but the fact that I was on call 24/7. In that 1 year and 10 months I worked in Yakima, I delivered over 550 babies and not missed a single one. and had had any issues with my patients. This was a case where someone was asking for help, and I owned up to my part in it. And like I said, I know why you folks are doing that this is in play. All I'm asking is, there is no way, and I hope I'm in. Yeah, frustration. This frustration to me, I'm in a catch-22 situation. I would love to solve this problem, but I cannot. I have a looming whistleblower complaint saying I'm unfit, although I have proven myself, and I'm glad I'm here. I'm protecting a lot of veterans, and I'm able to impart the knowledge through all the different private sectors. I don't know how much more I can prove to society that I am safe. You know, I don't know how young or wise or how many year old some of you board members are, but believe it or not, you probably studied some of the things that I wrote in a book, right? The Osteopathic Management of Female Patients. I wrote that 1 year into my attendingship. It's still being quoted. I was still being asked if they can copy or publish certain things. What happened to me here continues to haunt me, so much so that whistleblower, not only that, it continues to build when people know that there is a probation in my license. I have been accepting of it. I have shared the story because that is the way I've coped with it. When I say that, part of the reason why I was chosen to be a chief of staff of the VA system here is they said I was the most unique candidate because the thing that I wanted to change the most was the culture of the VA. So I helped implement a program called VA Voices. That VA Voices allows executive leaders to share their story. I joke around that that's my therapy, save a lot of money, but that is actually where I have shared this particular story to employees to show them that just because we're executive leadership, as you call us, and they think everything in our lives, or at least they have a perception that everything in our lives is perfect, it really truly is not. That every decision I make, because of the things that have happened to me, is not an easy one when I have to go to a provider and say, I'm going to have to revoke your privileges. But because of that, because of my transparency, people know that it takes a lot for me to get there, because my first inclination is there has to be a reason. Give the provider an opportunity to speak. Are they able to remediate? And I can tell you from this experience and what I'm going through, it is an impossibility to follow what it is that California wants me to do as I continue to try. I share that because really, because of this probation, I am always looming. There are not just a whistleblower complaint, there is also a equal opportunity, because they said, why did they pick a candidate that had a probation in their license as opposed to someone that did not? It's amazing the complaints that are against me, but thank goodness that we had an executive director that was mindful, and that's why I'm going to go back to my comment earlier. It took them well over 4 to 5 months to get me on board. Why? Because my particular recommendation to be the chief of staff went all the way up to Washington, D.C. Well, in part for 2 reasons, because I did have a probation in a particular state, and secondarily is I insisted that I be working clinically and surgically, because they have never had a chief of staff that worked beyond 0.1 FTE, that I insisted that I do 0.25 FTE. And because of that, a lot of attorneys and lawyers have been able to be comfortable in fighting that. But still this day, after 1.5 years of being chief of staff, it's still looming. And maybe tomorrow I won't have a job, but I sure as heck am going to persevere.
Thank you, Dr. Maganito. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dombrowski, will you have some questions that you would like the petitioner to answer? You're muted right now, but you'll need to unmute your microphone so that you can tell me. Go ahead.
I would only have a couple questions.
Okay. I guess I'll ask, before you ask them, is it the pleasure of the board that we should continue with those questions or take a recess and then come back to them? I'll look to either Ms. Williams or to new President Bahari for an answer, perhaps.
I think a short recess would probably be all right.
Okay, why don't we go off the record and take a recess? Can we take a 10-minute recess? Is that helpful for everyone? I see some nodding heads. All right.
Why don't we make it 15 minutes?
Okay, until 1 p.m.
Yes.
All right. We'll be off the record until 1 p.m. and we'll be in recess. And if everyone can come back then we can continue with the questions that Ms. Dombrowski may have and any questions the panel may have.
Thank you.